Good afternoon, Alisal. It's 1 o'clock on a Friday, so you know what that means. Livestream PD. Welcome back. We haven't seen you since before ATC. Did you like ATC? Did you have a good time? We got your feedback. We know. Thank you so much for the helpful comments. And those of you who fed back might get a little something at the end of our live stream today. So welcome to the live stream for October 23rd. Today we will be featuring for the first time, I want to say guests on the show, but like, what am I, Colbert? In any case, we will be have our guest presenters, Lisa Larison and Michelle Lynch, who are the special education TOSAs. So we are looking forward to that. So as per normal, when you need help from EdTech, please email edtech@Alisal, and also the Wednesday and Thursday live Google Meet help is there at bit.ly/Alisal help. The A and the H are capital. So this is a reminder. October is a little light on live stream because of all the special PD events in October. So October 30th, we will not be there to wish you a happy Halloween because you have the site-based PD day on October 30th and on January 11th. Which is a Monday, so that doesn't matter. But definitely this coming Friday, there will be no live stream. But that's because of PD Day, and then maybe the week of January 11th, there won't be as well because of PD Day. But anyway, a reminder, next Friday, no live stream PD. Okay, so at the end of live stream today, we will have the ATC raffle based on people who filled out the evaluation, and we have some cool prizes to raffle off. So I hope you stick around for that. However, it's not like you need to be present, not president, but don't need to be present, whatever that would mean right now, to win. It will be recorded, but if your name is pulled, you will be contacted by the EdTech department. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome Michelle and Lisa to the live stream. And Michelle or Lisa, I think there was a little bit of a hiccup, so I'm not sure if you're presenting at the moment. So if it doesn't say you're presenting, then go ahead and run through that again. I see your slides, but I'm not sure if other folks do.
You might just have to click, go back to the presenter button and click on resume.
Yeah, I think just click where you present and then click resume and you should be okay.
Let's see. Try again.
No worries. We always have these little tech hiccups, so. Excellent. There you go. Perfect. I can see that you're presenting. And take it away. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Hello, everyone, and happy Friday. My name is Lisa Larison.
I'm Michelle Lynch.
And welcome to our presentation on an overview of special education. We included this tiny URL. Once you have access to the slide deck, you can click on that and get access. The agenda today will include disability categories, Alisal special education programs, who needs to attend IEPs, the role of the general ed teacher in an IEP, and accommodations and modifications. Special education can include, but is not limited to, learning disabilities such as dyslexia, communication disorders, behavior disorders, physical disabilities such as spina bifida or muscular dystrophy, developmental disabilities such as autism spectrum disorder, and intellectual disabilities. These students benefit from different approaches to teaching. Here we have the 13 categories of special education as defined by the Individuals with Disabilities Act, the IDEA. In order to qualify, For special education, the IEP team must determine that the child has one of the following disabilities, which include autism, orthopedic impairment, emotional disturbance, and traumatic brain injuries. Here we have a link to a little bit more better description of each of the disabilities.
So the first one that we're going to talk about is specific learning disability. This is students who have an average IQ and they have difficulties in reading, writing, or math, or auditory processing, or things like that. If you click on each of these links, it gives you more about each of those specific categories.
Other health impaired. The umbrella term other health impaired covers conditions that limit a child's strength, energy, and alertness. An example is ADHD, which can affect and impact the executive functioning. The next, autism spectrum disorder. ASD is a developmental disability. It covers a wide range of symptoms, but it mainly affects a child's social and communication skills, which can also impact behavior.
Some students have emotional disturbance, which can be various mental health issues. It can include anxiety and depression. Sometimes they have bipolar, or sometimes they just have lots of difficulty with behavior. It just depends on the severity of their disability. There are programs for in the county that deal specifically with emotional disturbance, but some of our students can be in general ed and have emotional disturbance and only need a mild amount of supports. Speech and language impairment. This can include things like stuttering or articulation, how they are producing sounds. It can also include the language aspect of it, how they understand people, or how they are able to express themselves. Some of these are things that we know that you're familiar with, like visual impairment, deafness, blindness, so we are not going to cover that part.
Orthopedic impairment is when kids lack function or ability in their bodies. An example of this is cerebral palsy.
Students with intellectual disability have below average IQs. They can also have poor communication, social skills, and self-care skills. Often these students end up in our functional academics or life skills programs.
Traumatic brain injury caused by an accident or some kind of a physical force.
Students with multiple disabilities as their eligibility category are generally severe students. Oftentimes they are served at the county level, and they have many disabilities that greatly impact them, so much so that the team can't decide that one of the disabilities is more prominent and having more of an impact than others. So these are the special ed programs that we have in Alisal. We have speech and language, resource specialist program, or RSP. We have the SDC programs, communication social skills, CSS, general academics, functional academics, and life skills. So we already talked about speech and language a little bit. These students can have services through consultation to the parent or staff. They can have direct services in a pull-out approach or a push-in approach, especially in our district if, like in a SDC class where most of the students are receiving speech and language, and then they are able to serve those students in a push-in program. RSP is for students who have mild disabilities. Oftentimes, those students have specific learning disabilities, although not always. And the goal of RSP is to allow students to go have supports so that they can go back into the regular ed classroom. They have services for less than 49% of the day. So most of their day is in general ed.
We have 4 strands of special day class, SDCs. General Academics, GA, is located at Frank Paul, Chavez, and Barden. Communication Social Skills, CSS, is located at Creekside and Steinbeck. Functional Academics, FA, is located at Oscar Loya. And Life Skills, LS, is located at Fremont. General academics classes are primarily designed for students with mild to moderate disabilities, whose IEP teams have determined that they require specialized instruction for the majority of the school day. These students would benefit from mainstreaming opportunities in Gen Ed and allow opportunities and experiences in a least restrictive environment. The next strand, Communication Social Skills. These classes are designed with moderate disabilities due to having Asperger's syndrome, high functioning autism, and other related language-based disorders. These students have average intelligence and should be mainstreamed into the general ed population and to be considered for mainstreaming in the gen ed population. The main focus is on how they communicate and social skills.
So in the functional academics class, these students have moderate to severe disabilities. Oftentimes these are students who have intellectual disabilities, and they're focused on how they can use academics in everyday life, how they can use it to apply it to their daily living. And it says here that they have an alternative curriculum. In our district, they do use the general ed curriculum to expose them to the general ed curriculum, and they also have supplemental curriculums to teach some of those functional skills. Our life skills program is for the more severe students. Some of these students are nonverbal. Some of them need hand over hand in order to do things. And the focus here is on life skills. They do have an alternative curriculum that they use. They are still exposed to the standards, but in that alternative curriculum. And the focus here is on being able to function in the world, be able to learn skills that are community-based, how to get around, how to become as independent as is possible for them. Related services is a term that we use to talk about secondary services. Usually what happens is students are eligible for specialized academic instruction, which is being in the RSP classroom or being in SDC. And then they might have another service that is needed. With the exception of speech and language, these are not standalone services. So you're not going to have a student who just has physical therapy that's provided through school. They're going to have a primary service first. Speech and language is a related service if it's not their only service. So, do we have any questions about anything so far?
Yes, Michelle, we actually have a few questions that have come in, Lisa, so I'm going to go ahead and shoot them out to you. Just one quick comment. I know that some of you may need the link again. Just remember that that will be available shortly after the live stream on the remote instruction website. So if anybody has that question with regards to the slide deck that that Lisa and Michelle have. So the first question is, and this is, sorry, and this is very, it's a confidential, you know, the teacher wants to be very careful, obviously, with confidentiality issues. So I'll give you the name and maybe you could contact her. But she has a student who is a 6th grade student who was about to get tested for services before SIP, non-reader, almost going into middle school. Will this student be tested? I guess that was, you know, that was, I guess the teacher wants direction as to how she should proceed, or what would be her next step.
So we are working in the special ed department on testing and making that safe. Mr. Jaramillo is working on hopefully getting some testing that we can do remotely, and all of that is being worked out. So as soon as it's as we're able to do things safely, we're going to be letting people know. Keep in contact with the school psychologist and the RSP teacher, because that's probably the best way to know what's happening. Lisa, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, in some cases, if the high school district would prefer to, if the testing doesn't happen before, you know, close to the end of the year, then they have mentioned that they prefer to wait and do it the way that they conduct the assessments. So so that might be a possibility, but it definitely it's an individual, you know, team decision, and we would have to revisit that once we get the go ahead to assess.
Thank you very much. There was one more question that maybe we can address right now, and then we can move forward. Before that question, though, Dr. Purnell from the FRC just wanted to share that in case we weren't aware, they now have support for anybody who might need help with families who speak Mixteco or Triqui. And so they have staff, if, for example, you're having an IEP with a family who needs that support, the FRC has people available. So just an FYI for anybody who might need that. And the next question was from Ms. Rodriguez at MLK. I think it was Michelle. Michelle, you mentioned that some emotionally disturbed students can learn in a mainstream classroom with mild support. Who decides, or how is it decided when a student qualifies for a special day class? If the student does not qualify for special day class, then what kind of support will the student receive to be successful in a mainstream class?
Well, students don't qualify for RSP or SDC per se. You qualify for special education services, and it's the IEP teams has to come together to make data-driven decisions. And we are also mandated by the law to have students in the least restrictive environment possible. So it may be that your student has is an emotional disturbance, but they are successful with, you know, general education with a behavior plan and, you know, a few supports. Or, you know, it might be severe enough that they determine that the student needs more supports. If the student is able to do academic work at the in the general education setting, it may not be appropriate to have them in an SDC class. So it's really one of those things where it's important to have your input as a general education teacher in what's happening in the classroom, and to have that discussion so that the special ed staff can say, these are some options, what can we do to support the student? But it's always an individualized decision. Does that answer the question?
Thank you very much. I think so, yeah. It's also very informative already. I was telling George, like, I'm learning so much. I think for now, that's going to be it. There's another question, but that you might address in a little bit. So I think you're on for continuing where you left off.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Next, who needs to attend an individualized education plan? There are 5 required participants. There may be more depending on the needs of the child. LEA, this is the administrator. They need to be able to allocate funds as needed. They can help to facilitate the meeting and answer any questions about school programs. There is a checklist, an LEA checklist that they use to make sure that all the parts of the IEP have been covered. It just helps the whole team follow the IEP meeting. Next is the parent. Of course, the parent is one of the main people of the IEP team. They know their child the best. They know what would be helpful to their child. And next, the general education teacher. Excuse me. They know what the student is able to do and how they behave in school. They are the experts about the grade level curriculum and standards. Next, the case manager. This might be a speech therapist, a school psychologist, or a special education teacher. And lastly, the student. As they approach middle school, they become more a part of their and participate in their IEP, especially in transition meetings and things into middle school. And of course, other related services provided as needed for the individual student. What is the general education teacher's role in an IEP? You are legally expected to be at the IEP team meeting for the entire meeting. Bring your expertise and grade level knowledge and discuss mainstreaming possibilities. Contribute to appropriate goals and accommodations for the student. Bring and share data on the student's present levels and progress in the general ed setting. We often get asked, what should I bring to an IEP? Student strengths, what can they do? Focus on the things that they can do. Of course, you're going to talk about what they can't do, but mostly try to make it as positive as possible. Class behavior, social skills. How are they doing in the mainstream classroom? Work samples, test results, formative and summative. Accommodations, interventions that you're implementing. Maybe they're seeing an AmeriCorps tutor, or maybe they're getting some intervention from the intervention teacher. Bring all that information and come with a mindset. Please come with a mindset that all the students are our students.
So I wanted to put in something about signing IEPs, because over the past couple of years, I've had a lot of questions about this. General ed teachers who don't want to sign, they're confused about why they're signing. And so I just wanted to clear that up a little bit. When you are signing an IEP, if you are anyone other than the parent, you are not signing that you agree with the IEP. You are signing that you attended the meeting and that you're aware of the contents of the IEP. Now, if you do strongly disagree with the placement or another part of the IEP, you're able to attach a written explanation of why you disagree. I would recommend that you ask whoever's taking notes to just note your objections in the IEP itself. But the purpose of the signature is that you were in attendance and that you're aware of what's in the IEP. So silent amendments, again, people have asked questions about or have refused to sign because they weren't at the meeting. Silent amendments are allowed. They are legal. I wanted to show you guys, this is the IEP form when it is an amendment. And in the second set of checkboxes, it says, I agree. On number 2, I agree that a meeting is not needed for this IEP. If the parent checks that, then it's okay to go ahead with a silent amendment. If they haven't checked that, that would be when you wouldn't want to sign it without being at a meeting. But if they have checked that, then it is okay to sign because at this point, you're not signing that you attended the meeting because there was no meeting. You're signing because you're saying that you are aware of the changes to the IEP. And when we have silent amendments, they should be things that you don't need a big discussion about. They should be things that are either clerical errors that were made that need to be checked and corrected, or every year we have statewide testing that needs to be updated. And so they might come to you and say, your student was in 4th grade last year, they're in 5th grade this year, and this year they're going to be taking the science test and the PE test. They don't need any accommodations for PE, but I'm going to say that they're taking the test, and all the accommodations that we give them in the other assessments, we're going to give them for science as well. So it's not making a big change. The teacher should be calling the parent to let them know anyways. And so it's a small change. Likewise, if they're in 6th grade, we have to take those things off. So that's one of the reasons you might have a silent amendment. And it's perfectly okay to sign that amendment that you are aware of those changes. Are there any questions at this point for that or any other section?
I'm going to leave this up to you whether this might come up later. This question is about the SST process for this year. And I think implicit in that is just like we're under different circumstances right now. And so like how does that impact the SST process and how we're monitoring students' progress, things like that. But if you can touch on that right now, or if there's a better place, then maybe we could come back to that.
Well, we purposely didn't talk about the SST process because the SST process is a function of general ed. I like to think of it as like it's a road that you can go down, and there are lots of stops on that road, and only one of those stops is special ed. So, and you would need a whole hour just to talk about the SST process and how it works and all that kind of stuff. So if you have specific questions about how SST is working, I would talk to your vice principal and see what they say about how they're doing that at this time. But I believe we are still, doing some of that.
And SSTs tend to be different at every site, how they're handled and how they're making determinations. So it's difficult for us to really comment on that specifically.
So Lisa and Michelle, if it's going to chime in here with my administrator hat, acknowledging that I am not the special ed administrator, and I am not an expert in this. However, last year before the world ended, all district administrators, AP up, were given a lot of in-service by district attorneys around special ed topics. And this was a misconception at the assistant principal, director, at kind of every admin level. So it doesn't surprise me that this would be out there amongst teachers. But as you just said, I think was really key that you said SSTs are a gen ed function. Right. One of the vice principals started a question with, I know we have to SST before we go into SPED, and the attorney stopped them cold and said, no, that is not how the law works. That is not a legal process. And in fact, we can be cited for holding up, what is it called? Identification, holding up that legal process by making SST a procedural hurdle on that. So I think it's a good misconception to clear up. That's pretty popular because of how we have done things for a long time here in the Alisal. I think we were all doing them with best intentions and the best information that we'd learned from each other, but it was made pretty clear to us that SST is not a required part of general ed or of special ed identification, that it is not part of the special education process.
No, but it does go back to least restrictive environment, and that's part of why it is sometimes thought of as the road to special ed, because you do want to exhaust what can be done in general ed without special ed support. having said that, there are times that has to be jumped, and you note what has been done to this point and move forward. Everyone is an individual decision, so it has to be made individually with those people who know what's happening with that student.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think that was the only question for right now, so
Okay.
you can hand it off.
So accommodations and modifications. There is a difference between the two. Accommodations are changes in how the student accesses information. Modifications change what the student is expected to learn. So an accommodation would be if you're still having the student work on multiplication tables, but you allow them to use a multiplication chart. A modification would be everybody is doing a 5-paragraph essay, but we're going to have this student do a 3-paragraph essay, and they're going to be able to dictate it. That's changing how much they're doing and how they're doing it, and they're not doing the writing portion of it. So. And I liked this quote about accommodations. It was talking about general education students, but can apply to special ed students as well. While accommodations have the potential to help struggling learners to more fully engage in demanding academics, they should not compromise learning by holding a general education student who accesses them to a lesser performance standard than the rest of the class. After all, students with academic deficits must actually accelerate learning to close the skill gap with peers, so allowing them to do less is simply not a realistic option. And especially for students in RSP, they need to accelerate their learning as much as possible. The goal with them is to get them back into the general education population. So just something for teachers to keep in mind. We do want them to learn, just in a little different way. So some questions about accommodations and modifications for general education teachers. This had a couple things that I thought were pertinent. So teachers have responsibility to adjust their instruction for students' needs, to make sure that it's still cognitively challenging, and to differentiate, to break down concepts into segments or chunks to make it easier, evaluate and grade that so that it doesn't penalize the student for their disability, creating a climate of acceptance and among the students, as well as in the classroom with the teacher, and be a part of the IEP team. Legal problems do arise when teachers refuse to make accommodations. The IEP document is a legal document, so you are expected to do the accommodations that are on the IEP. If teachers discriminate against students with disabilities, for example, saying this student has behavior issues so they can't go on field trips, we cannot do that. We have to figure out a way to allow them to participate. When members of the IEP team don't work cooperatively together as a team, proper documentation and procedures not being followed, filling out forms and paperwork. There are times when you're going to get forms, surveys from the RSP teacher or the school psychologist, and it's a lot of work, and so you forget about it. You have other things to worry about, but it's really important that those things get done. Oftentimes they're part of the school psychologist's assessment report, and they need to be able to see how are they doing in class versus how they're doing at home, and they send things out to both parties, and they really need to get those things back so they can compare and see, use that as part of their assessment to determine whether or not the student qualifies for services. So it's very important that that get back as soon as possible. And also failure to participate in the IEP meeting. I know that we talk about that an awful lot. General education teachers are very important parts of the IEP team, even when it's an SDC student that maybe you don't see. But we need you there at those meetings so that you can be the expert about standards, what kinds of topics you're covering in class, what level they're at, so we can compare to the student to see, is it appropriate if they participate? How can they participate? And be part of all of that kinds of discussion. Or, you know, to be a part of the discussion about the accommodations and what's going to work for that student. So it's very important, and we appreciate it when you attend. Also, how can I remember all of these accommodations for these students? Well, we have IEP 6A. It's one of the forms in the IEP, and it has all of the accommodations written out on it. So if you have a copy of that, and say you have 3 students in special ed, I would put all of those out and then see which of those students have the same accommodations, so that you know Billy and George have sit next to the teacher. I have to make sure that they're next to the teacher, and Susie gets a multiplication table. And then if you can keep those with your lesson plans, that will make it easier for you to make sure that those accommodations are being implemented. Okay, some things to note. Make sure that you do get a copy of the accommodations. Now, this should be just given to you by the case manager, but should they not do that, track them down instead. It's important that you know what those accommodations are, because you're the one who's responsible in the classroom. You have to understand how to implement them, and if you don't, get help from the case manager. Resource specialists are supposed to be a resource for the general ed teacher as well as to the students and the parents. So get them to help you out. Classroom and testing accommodations should match. So you shouldn't have testing accommodations that you're not doing in the classroom. And if you're doing it in the classroom, you're probably going to want it for the test as well. So they should match. And IEP, all the accommodations, as we've said, are IEP team decisions. So if you're not sure about something, or you have questions, or you don't think it's easy to implement, bring that up at the meeting. Also, I just caution everybody about, that sounds good, we might as well throw it in there. Remember that if you, as a team, decide that the student needs an accommodation, it has to be implemented all the time. So if they don't really need it, don't put it on the IEP. It doesn't mean that you can't, just like any of your other students, give them an accommodation once in a while. But if they really need it all the time, that's when you should put it on there. So make sure that that's part of your team discussion. And some things to think about, accommodations can benefit more than just special ed students. You might have EL students who could benefit from it, or just students who are functioning lower but don't qualify for special ed. Sometimes students have limited memory, so you want to think, what is the most important thing that this student needs to know? That's when you're knowing what the essential standards are is really helpful. Okay, so these are some questions that you can ask to help you determine which accommodations would be appropriate. Is the student not doing something because they can't perform the task, or is it because they won't perform the task? You might need a different accommodation if it's an academic concern versus if it's a behavioral concern. Is the accommodation an age-appropriate accommodation? So say you have a 5th grader and they read at a 1st grade level. Is it more appropriate to give them a 1st grade passage, or is it more appropriate to have them listen to the 5th grade passage? It's probably appropriate to have them listen to the 5th grade passage so that they can follow along with the discussion and understand the content. And then talk about the decoding concerns later. Is the accommodation feasible and easy to implement? So as a general ed teacher, if you see that that's going to be an issue, bring that up at the meeting, and maybe they can help find another way to meet the needs of the student and make it something that you're able to do too. We're not trying to burden you with things you need to do, but we do need to make sure that the students' needs are being met. And does the accommodation have a record of effectiveness? So that's why we tend to use the accommodations that are in Cyrus that we know work. Oops. There we go.
Great job, Michelle. So we found Accommodations and Modifications Guide, and this is a great resource for you to look up, you know, and maybe I think my student needs some, you know, help in math or in reading. Right here it gives modifications and accommodations. The hierarchy of modifications and accommodations, kind of what's most restrictive and what's least restrictive. Behavior issues, it gives you modifications and accommodations for that. And this may help you with your whole entire class. Any kind of routine that you can get implemented and practiced is the best thing for your entire class. So it's a long document. It's about 44 pages. So once you get the slide deck, check it out. It's really good information. And then the next is ADHD Toolkit. And this one really provides a lot of forms and things that you can use, how to approach things like introducing yourself, explaining ADHD to teachers. Like there's, it's like an iceberg where you see just the what you see on top, but there are many, many things underneath that affect this child and their ADHD. So it's just a great resource. Explaining it to the other classmates, sometimes it's really hard, but it gives you some ideas, and conversation starters, even for parent and teacher worksheets. So it really gives you some great ideas because there are a lot of students who suffer from attention issues and they don't qualify for SPED. And this would be a great opportunity for you to give them access just for your whole entire class.
And I just wanted to show, there's also homework ideas. I know that's always an issue, especially for students with ADHD. Things for parents that you can tell them about, and things for teachers that they can do to help with the homework.
All right, so the next slide shows some autism accommodations. And what is, if you find your student is not responding, reacting to what you say, use visuals. Visual supports are a communication tool to provide structure and routine, to encourage independence, improve understanding, provide opportunities to interact with others. All these give you suggestions, and sometimes you would need a substitute teacher. So that gives you some ideas, but you can also use it for yourself. I like how they have the puzzle pieces. You can follow specific lesson plans. It gives you ideas for that. Begin the day with a friendly opening. It just gives you some steps to take and to prepare yourself for any of these types of students. Allow the student to well, there you go. Extra time to process language, to answer questions. That's a big one for me. Allow processing time. Give them, say, okay, I'm going to ask you a question. As soon as I'm done, you'll be the third one. Give them time to think about what they're going to say, how they're going to say it. Give brief descriptions in multiple ways, like universal design for learning. Allow them to pick from menus and things. With visuals, use positive reinforcements, and it just goes on and on. So please look at this. It's great information. Next, we thought we'd throw in something about COVID, where we are now currently. It gives some suggestions on how to establish a creative visual schedule, designing the school space, making a list of classroom rules, using reward systems for good behavior. These are all things that we learned in, Teaching 101. It just gives you more ideas and different ways to approach more visual directions and things to help these students.
Were you going to tell about practicing desensitizing, what that means?
Yes. So thank you, Michelle. Definitely. For example, I know that fire drills and earthquake drills and disaster drills are going to become more, we're going to probably be doing them more after this pandemic, COVID-19. So if you can desensitize them, practice, make sure they understand why the noise comes, because that noise, that fire alarm noise, it scares me. So you just have to talk them through it, practice a lot, make sure that they understand what's going to happen. So that's desensitizing them to, if it just all of a sudden happens in a real emergency. So it helps with them, and it can be incorporated into your routine so that it's just, oh, it's a fire drill. All I have to do is exit out the door and line up outside. Or if it's an earthquake drill, I duck and cover. It's not going to be a panic or they have a meltdown or anything like that. So desensitizing the children. Yes. The social stories help as well. And you have to be concrete. You can't be abstract. So if they say it's raining cats and dogs, they literally think that cats and dogs are coming out of the sky. You have to use visuals and explain and walk through these social stories for them to understand and appropriately answer and things like that, to understand how it works socially. And these are visual supports. There's so many out there. These ones are helpful step-by-step guides. There's free printables. If there is an activity that you think there's too many directions, throw in a visual, or use real kids, or take pictures of, like Realia, that you could use examples from the internet, or anything that can help them understand a social situation or directions, anything that will assist them in understanding and comprehending what you're trying to do. And here's some more visual supports. The first, then next, that always works. First, you're going to have your lunch, and then you're going to play. These types of visuals are very effective, especially if you use them for your entire classroom. When it tells you when it's helpful, how do I teach it, how do I use it? It gives you just quick things that you can apply right away. And that's one of the things we wanted you to be able to take away and use, as soon as possible. So, hey, Michelle, we did it. We're here at another question and answer. We every time we timed ourselves, it seemed so short, but here we are.
No, it goes by pretty fast. Thank you, ladies. We do have some questions here for you. So we're gonna before I ask the questions, I wanted to talk about, some of you have been kind of submitting questions or comments that, these two ladies, they're toasters like we are, so they're not administrators, so they may not have the answer that you're looking for, but some of those seem to be about timelines, communications. I think those are things that need to be worked out at the site and probably with the case manager. So I think, just work to that. If you have bigger, not so specific issues, remember that we do have our Q&A with the directors, and we have our SPED director that often shows up. So that's coming up the first week of November. So those questions may be more appropriate there. So with that being said, one of the questions that came up was from Loya here, and the question is, in a speech IEP speech IEP update or modify, besides the GE teacher, who else must be present? Was it all the people that you mentioned earlier?
So a speech IEP, if it's speech only, there's going to be less people, but there's still those, if without the student, there's 4 main people who have to be at the meeting. So it's still the parent, the LEA, the speech person who is the case manager in this case, and the general education teacher.
Thank you, Michelle. Yes, thank you. And again, I think hopefully people that are asking these questions know your names, and if they have additional questions, they can follow up with an email to you.
Yes.
Yep.
You shared that document with accommodations for students. A question's coming in from a teacher at Chavez asking if there's maybe if that document has a recommended grade levels. So the question is specifically, what's the maximum grade level for that document of accommodations? Will it help middle school and high school students? They're asking because they had a student who had difficulty with math and was still having trouble with math in middle school, however.
I'm not sure this one? No. I'm not sure which one you're talking about, if it's this, but it's not so much about a grade level. Oh, the age appropriateness maybe is the question. I'm not sure. But it really depends on what is needed for the student, but you just have to, have a discussion about whether it's appropriate. Does it make more sense to, give materials that are really low for the student, or to let them be part of the discussion by, allowing them to access the curriculum at their level in a different way is what I was talking about. But as far as the accommodations, it's not like we only use these accommodations until this time and then it's a cutoff. It's just a matter of, as a team, deciding what is best for that student and what's going to be the most beneficial. How can they get the most educational benefit from their services as well as their accommodations?
Yes, and we also find that in those instructional accommodations, they change year to year often because the student is growing and gaining so much, and sometimes the student can be ready to jump back into the gen ed or whatever, but all the IEPs can go up to age 21. So it would cover middle school and high school if that was needed for that child.
And that's also
all right.
An annual IEP so that we can discuss those. And as a gen ed teacher, you can always call for an IEP also to say that you want to discuss certain things.
Thank you, ladies. I did want to share that we've gotten some kudos about your presentation and how eye-opening it is. So that kudos to you guys for presenting this. I've learned stuff. So one last question before we close up with you, and this is actually from a director. So how about that? The question is, who is qualified and trained to provide accommodations for students during instruction, learning, and state testing?
If the accommodations are in the IEP, the case manager should be able to help the general education teacher out, but there's nothing that says that the gen ed teacher can't be the one who's doing the accommodations. In fact, if it's classroom accommodations and they're an RSP student and they're in your general education class, or if they're an SDC student and they're mainstreaming in your class, you do have to do those accommodations. So it's a matter of both of you working at it. If you need help, that's what the case manager is there for also. And for testing, I've had kids go into the regular ed class and do their statewide testing, and the teacher, the general ed teacher, is the one who's providing those accommodations or making sure that those accommodations are there. As the case manager, I'm trying to check in and make sure that the teacher knows what those accommodations are and check to make sure that they understand how to make sure that they're on there. But in the classroom, they're the ones who are doing it, because I might have students that I have to do testing with that are taking it in a separate setting, but not all of those students need separate settings. So it's not about who's trained or whatever or eligible to give them or whatever. It's just who's able to give them at the time.
And they're educational accommodations. So if you're an educator, you should be able to accommodate with these. And they're not, you know, they may seem a little intimidating, or how do we do that? But that information, or the toolkit for modification, that explains it really well. And you should have access to that as soon as we're posted on the live stream or the remote instruction.
Well, thank you, ladies. You know, that is about the time that we have. You know, we're going to go ahead and we'll forward to you any questions that are still open. And of course, we will share your information on the remote instruction website shortly after we are done here. So thank you very much. And it has been very educational. So
thank you.
With
Thank
that
you,
being
everyone.
said,
Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye, Michelle. Bye, Lisa.
Thank you.
Can you not see my screen? Let's take a look on here. Looks like we're having technical difficulties here. So let's see if I can try this again here. Share. How about now?
Yeah, I think it's there. You go.
Okay, there we go. All righty. So that was great. So we're going to go ahead, and we have a few minutes. I'm going to get through this really quickly so we can get you out of here. So we wanted to let you know that thank you for the feedback with regards to the technology conference. We value that, and we will use that to improve. So thank you for that. We wanted to also, you know, here's our usual. We usually have a raffle at the end of the conference, and we didn't this year, so we thought we would do it live. We tried to support a lot of more local organizations this year, so we went and bought some gift cards and gift certificates. Even though some of these are changed, we tried to stay away from them, but you know, we didn't stay away completely. This is on behalf of, I wanted to let you know that this is on behalf of T3 and ATA, and also on behalf of the Alisal Union School District. There will be some gift certificate, some gift certificates to Lakeshore, so that you can restock, you know, some of the things that you may need as, you know, for your classroom. So with that being said, Sally's going to take over and explain to you the rules really quickly, and then I will take over and we'll go into selecting the winners.
So just so you're aware of what to expect with a drawing. So we have, we're just using a web-based name selector. And so we took the names from the people who filled out the survey, and we placed them inside of the wheel of names. And so George is going to click through the wheel of names, and it'll generate the names from that list. If you do get selected, we'll remove your name from the eligible names, so that you only get one chance, of course, of winning. And we'll go through the prizes. And if you are one of the teachers who gets one of the prizes, we'll make sure we contact you directly. And so we were thinking that we could either drop off your gift card or prize to your school site if you're going into school, and you can just pick it up there. But if it would be easier for you to have us mail it to you, for example, we would be happy to do that too. And so again, if you're one of the winners, we'll go ahead and we'll make sure that we contact you to make sure how we can get that to you. And so while George is selecting the names with the wheel of names, I'm going to have a document open, and I'll keep track of who's getting which prize. And so don't worry about keeping track. We'll keep track.
Well, she will announce what gift cards it's being.
Yes, right.
And we're starting from lower numbers up to higher numbers.
Yeah, so we're gonna start with $15 Starbucks cards.
Here we go. You ready?
Let's do it.
The anticipation is killing me. If you're talking, George, no one can hear you.
I apologize. I have my microphone off because I don't want the echo on there. But Heather, we don't know which Heather, so we might have to redo this one. I apologize. Sorry, Heather. Let's do this. So we're gonna remove that one and let's continue here. Once you are selected, you will be removed from the selection process. So you don't want to go out first because you want the big prizes, right?
All prizes are good, George. Don't.
That's true. That's true. There you go, Yvette. Congratulations,
Yay,
Yvette. I believe you are at Sanchez, Yvette, so we'll find you. Next one, it's another gift card for We have 3 of them for Starbucks, $15 gift cards. We have, who is it? Mr. Jones. We know who you are, Mr. Jones. There's only one of you, so we'll find you. All right, the third gift card for Starbucks is Alicia Bravo. Congratulations, Alicia.
Yay, Alicia.
All right, here we go. Now we're moving. What's next, Celia?
Panda Express.
$15 gift cards to Panda Express. Here you go.
Somebody's getting some cream cheese rangoons.
There we go. Gregory, congratulations. We're gonna speed this up a little bit, hopefully. Okay. Celia needs to keep up here. So we have 2 more of these, 2 more Panda Express ones. We have Isabel. Congratulations, Isabel.
Isabel. Woo!
Who is it? Marie Wood.
Yay, woo!
So this is mountain bikes, $20.
Mountain bikes.
Mountain mics,
mountain bikes.
not bikes.
Okay.
There you go, Miss Chavez.
Yeah.
2 more of these. Oh, didn't I remove her? Oh, that was Alicia. Okay, wrong one.
Bravo before, George. We had Alicia Bravo. This is Anna Bravo.
Thank you. I've been known to make mistakes, so I wanted to double check that. Good job. You guys are paying attention. And it's being recorded too, so you can find me. Yvette, congratulations. $20 for Viva Espresso coffee on the north side of town. So spend some time over there. Heard it's good. Tiffany, congratulations, Tiffany. Two more of these. There you go, Miss Solis.
Solis.
Okay. Melinda, congratulations. All right, we're moving on up. $25, Casa Sorrento. Great pizza and pasta. Louise, congratulations. Who needs sound effects?
We all need them.
Mr. Herman, congratulations. There you go, Maria Guadalupe Ramirez. Congratulations. I'm glad you put your middle name because there might have been a couple of Maria Ramirez's.
$125. Lakeshore.
Lakeshore, $125. We're getting really big here. Mr. Lang, congratulations. That's a $125. 2 more of these. Right. All right, Dr. H. I don't know if that's fair. No, just kidding. Congratulations, Dr. H.
I'm going to make an administrative decision that Dr. H does not need a shopping spree at Lakeshore, and that this should go to a teacher. So we can re-roll this one.
Okay, let's go. Okay, we'll remove that.
I will make this up to Dr. H separately.
Okay, you're gonna have to, or else he's gonna come find me.
Find me. I'm the one who said it on the air.
All righty. Sandra Estrada, congratulations. We have one more, Celia. Last one on here, $125 gift card to Lakeshore. Here we go. Let's see who it is. Who it is? It Elizabeth Mendoza. Congratulations, everybody. Thank you for sticking with us. Celia's going to take over and close us off, but thank you for sticking with us and staying through this. We will be in contact with regards to getting you your prize. So have a, Celia, it's all yours.
So,
or not.
I think Celia was going to close this out. I just wanted to clarify, we will doing, for the folks who won Lakeshore, the Ed Tech department will be doing that purchasing for you. We'll be in contact with you. Celia, you want to take it?
You got it. So thank you for being here. Just a quick reminder, we did this at the beginning of the live stream, but I know sometimes people come in late. We're going to see you in 2 weeks because next week is the site PD day, and so we won't be here. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you for joining us. We'll be in touch with all the prize winners, and as always, be good to yourself, be good to each other, and be good to our kids. We will see you next time.
Have a good weekend, everybody.